One thing I do want to mention in regard to the crew, we've talked about the 7 astronauts. This crew was one that they were particularly interested because of the Krista McAuliffe going along with them. The commander of the crew, Dick Scobie's wife, is a prominent educator, and she was extremely proud by the fact that a teacher was going on this particular flight. It was also a flight that Greg Jarvis was very happy to be on. Greg Jarvis is a person who had been bumped from 2 flights. He had been bumped from the flight which Senator Jake Garn went on. He was later bumped from the flight which Congressman Bill Nelson went on. So this was a man who twice had been bumped from flights. He was extremely excited about going into this. He was very confident. He was comfortable. And during this time while we have been waiting for the liftoff, we had the opportunity several times to meet with Krista McAuliffe's parents. Her parents said that they had trepidation about this flight and that they were concerned and they were a little scared. But they said that their daughter, Krista, said, "This was what I want to do. I am so proud I'm able to represent my profession. I am so proud and confident and feel good about the chance that we have for the field of education, for what we can do for education." So they said, despite any trepidation that they had, they were just extremely proud for their daughter, and they were very hopeful for her. And as we saw a few moments ago, pictures of them at the period of the launch, there were tears in their eyes. That was from the happiness, I believe, because they know how much she had worked toward this flight. And Krista said before leaving, "I now feel part of this crew. I am a teacher first, but I really feel as part of this crew."
Bruce, we've mentioned it several times that it was so easy to forget when things were going well how dangerous space flight can be and is. That one is reminded of the old seaman saying that thy sea is so great and my boat is so small. The sky, of course, is even greater than the sea in size, and pilots have a saying that although the sea is unforgiving, the sky is even more unforgiving. No one can say what happened aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger this morning when it exploded 1 minute and 12 seconds into its flight. That's a very interesting point you make, Bruce, that we need to keep emphasizing that while NASA has said nothing about what happened, you can clearly see from the videotape, which we will of course show again as we go along with our live coverage from CBS News, but you see the explosion happen. Bruce had his small model, and we go back to the large model here. You can see on the slow motion of the videotape that the explosion happens. We said one theory was that it seemed to start maybe in the solid fuel rocket booster, the solid rocket booster, one of those. It seemed to start out there. One of the theories, one of the working theories only, is that the explosion happened on the right side of one of those solid rocket boosters first and then spread to the main tank on which the shuttle rides, in which you have, among other things, this explosive liquid hydrogen in there. Now that was the first theory put forward, one of the hypotheses put forward. Now Bruce is mentioning the possibility, underscore the word possibility, that in a close looking at the slow motion of the videotape, that some observers, not the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, some observers say, well, it seems that the explosion may not have actually happened in the solid rocket booster itself, but seemed to perhaps have happened, as Bruce pointed out, right in this area, the solid rocket booster attached to the main fuel tank where most of the explosive material is, and these solid rocket boosters supposedly will drop away later. They never got to that point today. Some say, well, now, perhaps you can see in the close-up, there are seams in this big tank. This is the main fuel tank. There are seams. There's a seam here, and there's a seam down here. Now, the explosion, to some eyes, seems to have occurred right at this point, and so there is speculation, nothing more than that, and a theory that perhaps the explosion began in the main fuel tank itself at one of those seams. Now, it's only a theory, but Bruce, would the very low temperature in Florida this morning, 28 degrees, well below freezing on the Fahrenheit scale, have had anything to do with the ability of those seams on the main fuel tank to stand up?
Dan, I'm sorry. Now we have just restored our audio line. I did not hear your question now.
Not a problem, Bruce, and I'm sure the audience understands this is live coverage. The question is, would the low temperatures, the 28-degree temperature in Florida this morning, have affected the seams on that main fuel tank at all?
That is one of the things that they're going to be taking a very, very close look at here, because with the low temperatures, and the fact that the temperature did drop down below 28 degrees, which is a crucial one, the crucial temperature here because that's when the icicles begin to form and when they're forming on the shuttle gantry. There is a possibility, and there is a strong possibility, that some of the icicles could have formed in connection with the main shuttle fuel tank. The fuel tank itself, the brown, orange-looking tank that you see right there on the launch pad. Some concern. We saw a lot of icicles at the base of the launch pad about an hour before the shuttle lifted off. So we don't know if they were actually on the main fuel tank, but it is a very distinct possibility. You can see there long icicles. We were told their icicles were 2 feet in length. That appears to be actually even longer than 2 feet in length. And as the cameras panned the launch area earlier today, about an hour before the launch itself, you saw a lot of areas where there were icicles. So it is not just in a few areas where you can find the icicles. You found the icicles on the gantry around the launch pad and also right around the engine area. And an ice inspection team was called to the pad. We delayed the launch. NASA delayed the launch by approximately 1 hour in addition to the earlier malfunction. So the launch itself went off 2 hours later than scheduled. But it was delayed the last time as they brought in an ice inspection team to check the shuttle, to check the solid rocket boosters, to check the main fuel tank, and to, most importantly, check the gantry area right around the launch pad, where there still were, at the time of launch, a considerable amount of ice. There were a lot of icicles that you can see formed on the edges of the launch pad itself. The main concern, of course, is whether there was any ice on the shuttle or on the solid rocket boosters or main fuel tank. The icicles that we see here are in reality on the pad itself rather than the shuttle. Right there you saw the icicles on the stairway going up the launch pad. This is a newly refurbished launch pad. It is the first time that a shuttle has taken off from this launch pad. The previous 24 launches have been from pad 39A. This is pad 39B. The last time that it was used was 10 years ago with the joint Russian-U.S. space probe. And it has been refurbished in the last 2 years so that the shuttle program would be able to take advantage of that, and they would be able to increase the number of launches. One thing, there are no ejection seats on the space shuttle. There were ejection seats on the first several shuttles. First 4 flights of the shuttle, they had ejection seats. They were taken out for 2 reasons. Reason 1, when we increased the size of the crew, and this time we had a crew of 7, there was not enough room left in the shuttle to have ejection seats, and it could not take care of 7 people. So those were taken out after the first 4 flights. The experimental flights of the shuttle, they removed those. There also was a theory backed by most people in the space program that if there was an emergency aboard the space shuttle, there is no way that anyone could eject and survive. So because of the fact that they did not believe anyone could survive and they needed the extra room, after 4 flights of the space shuttle, they removed the ejection seats to give them more room, because it is, after all, a very cramped area. The shuttle itself is large, but the area where most of the people...
Check me as we go along here. The 24th space shuttle shot. There have been 56 United States manned space shots. Never before has there been a disaster in actual flight. The last time astronauts were killed was in 1967 when 3 were killed on the pad as part of the Apollo program. Now, we're going to take you from the launch pad right through the videotape, first the real-time videotape of what happened this morning, and then go to the slow motion once again. For those of you who've been with us throughout our live coverage, you've seen this before. We are aware that many in our audience are joining us for the first time. This was the scene. All those icicles that Bruce mentioned before are around. There's been an icicle inspection, but they've decided to go ahead with the launch. This is what happened.
Of the 25th Space Shuttle mission, and it has cleared the tower.
Now control. Roger, roll, Challenger. Good roll program confirmed. Challenger now heading down range.
Lujan or Lujan?
Engine Engines beginning throttling down now at 94%. Normal throttles for most of the flight, 104%.
Leslie Stone.
We'll throttle down to 65% shortly. Engines at 65%, 3 engines running normally, 3 good fuel cells, 3 good APUs. Velocity 2,257 feet per second. Altitude 4.3 nautical miles, downrange distance 3 nautical miles. Engines throttling up, 3 engines now at 104%.
Challenger, go with throttle up.
Roger, go with throttle up.
1 minute 15 seconds. Velocity 2,900 feet per second. Altitude 9 nautical miles. Downrange distance 7 nautical miles.
Roger, go with throttle up. The last words heard from Space Shuttle Challenger.